Join Jesus where he's already at work. We dream of the day where every home in America is adopted by one or more persons living the prayer, care, share lifestyle. Our host, Gary Kendall, began Love KC with the desire to see every home in Kansas City prayed for. Join with him to make this happen. Now, on to the Blessed Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Blessed Podcast, where we join Jesus where he's already at work, where we live, learn, work, and play. And on the Blessed Podcast, we like to invite guests who are living on mission and where their life is a light into the world. And then we encourage them to share their story and tell us why they do what they do. And today I'm very excited to say that we have Shannon Benton on with us. And Shannon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to this time. If you have not met Shannon before, I'm going to give her a chance in a second to tell a little bit more about who she is. She works with Unite KC and dances with Underground. And we're excited about the impact that she makes. But for those who are joining us, this might be your first time. Let me just give you a little bit of an intro. So you can find the Blessed Podcast on iTunes and on Google Play. You can also find it on our website at lovekc.net and look under the tab that says resources. And then we post these on our Love KC Today Living on Mission Facebook group. So if you typed in Love KC Today on Facebook, you would be able to see our group. It would pop up. And all of the Blessed podcasts are there, as well as prayer calls and other kinds of things that we do. It's really the most active place where people at Love KC engage with one another, other than the times we're in person. But if we're online, that's the place to go and tell your story, ask your questions. You can post there. It's really your chance to be a community inside of Kansas City where we are living on mission. So love to catch up with you there. Shannon, I've looked forward to this. I've been able to know you for about a year. I met you, first of all, last year, I think, around the Walk for Unity.
Yes.
That was the first time we met. And I thought you did an excellent job with that. And we'll get to that in a minute. But first of all, just give the listeners a little bit of an introduction about who you are and why you do what you do.
Yeah. Well, like Gary said, my name is Shannon, and I am the communications director for Unite KC. And our organization is actually turning 2 on June 5th. So relatively new nonprofit grassroots movement working toward racial healing in Kansas City. And I also have the opportunity to dance with Storling Dance Theater. And so I've been a part of the production Underground that Gary mentioned for the past 5 years. And then I also teach for Storling Conservatory and help out with some of their communications as well. So lots of time split in between the studio and in an office.
Yeah, I love Jeremiah and Mona. And I think I shared this with you, Shannon, that we just had the great privilege, and that's what I consider it to be, one of the first places they ever debuted Underground before it even got to like the bigger theaters. We let them debut particular parts of it, scenes from it, inside of our church on stage at Indian Creek Community Church while I was there. So it was terrific. Then it gets better every year, and I just love the message that's portrayed there. So thank you for giving yourself to that.
Yeah, well, thank you for being a part of the beginnings, and who knew what it would turn into. So.
Who knew? Yeah, big fans of Jeremiah and Mona.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Walk for Unity, because it's coming up pretty soon. And take us back to a little bit of the origins of Unite KC and why this particular event kind of in one way is like a symbol of what you guys stand for.
Sure. So as I mentioned, Unite KC, we're coming up on a 2-year anniversary on June 5th. And really what that date that represents is when Dayton Moore, the founder, sent a text message in the aftermath of George Floyd and all of the just unrest and emotions and everything going on in the country at that time. He sent a text message saying that we have to do something, and not sure what that looks like, but I'm ready. And so he sent that to a few people. And so that was the beginnings of Unite KC, and people really coming together to not just talk about racial healing when it is a talking point in the news, but really to do something, to take action, and to address the needs in our specific community, and then also to be able to really serve as a model for the country as it spreads. And really a big part of what we of the strategy is just recognizing that that racism is not a fight of black versus white, but it's good versus evil. And a lot of that came from just lessons learned even in producing underground. Really, a lot of the people who are involved in Unite KC were also impacted or involved with underground on some level. And in addition to that, because it's not black versus white, we all have to come together to fight evil with good. And in order to do that, that requires heart transformation. And so a lot of what Unite KC focuses on is the what does that look like to come together and to hear someone else's story, and to allow their experiences to be a part of your education or my education, to hear their lived experiences, to learn more about the city and the history of the city, and why things are the way they are. And then how do we keep going from there? How does that affect the way that we treat people? And then how does that affect the way that we use the influence we have in our various spheres? So really about taking action, and then also coming together. And so with the Walk for Unity last year, we really wanted to, in starting Unite KC, a lot of it was starting with talking in meetings, and how do we go about this? What does the strategy look like in actuality? And so also a lot of that was happening during COVID, with a lot of online, or just not being able to hold larger gatherings. And so when we were looking at how do we introduce Unite KC as this grassroots movement to the city, we, through just some of it being influenced with, okay, we can't do this here, we can't do that there, but okay, we have this summer, let's get together, let's acknowledge the history of the city, and the history of racism in Kansas City, and then make a conscious decision to change that for the future. Kansas City has like truced a clear racial dividing line, that the effects of redlining and things like that okay, that technically is illegal, you can't redline anymore, but there is still that divide in the city.
There
and
is.
So what can we as people, as citizens, do to come together and cross that line? So that was a big part of last year, really acknowledging that, coming together and walking to make a statement that we're committed to this work. And so this year, what have we done? Where do we go next? And so we are really excited just to be able to come back together in this way. We've spent the past year really working on education and conversations, and really trying to bring people together, and just connect people who have a heart for racial unity in Kansas City. And so this year, the theme is Next Steps Together. And so how do we come together, not just for those relationships, but for that day, not just to meet people for that day, but to continue those relationships, and to really see someone who you may have a preconceived notion in seeing them, but then okay, actually we both played sports in college, or we both have kids in elementary school. So we're using that tactic to kind of bring people together in affinity groups at the top of the walk. And then at the end of the route, we'll be back at Urban Youth Academy in that area. And so it'll just be like a community day, and a time to make memories and get to know people better that you've walked with. And we'll have some options, some suggestions for how to continue those relationships past the walk. So
yeah, it sounds exciting. Last year when we got on different sides of the football field, at first, my first impression was, I thought, like, oh no, we're reinforcing the problem. But quickly realize what we're doing is we're actually bringing it to light because a lot of people don't know. And then the really cool moment of the day in my mind was when we walked across the football field. We started with people who lived on the west side of Troost and people who lived on the east side of Troost, lining up on different sides of the football field. And then we walked together. I took my whole family, grandkids and all, and we walked to the middle. And I remember it was either you or Ray, were actually trying to get people to start the walk. They were just talking and talking. It seemed like they would have stayed in the middle of the field forever.
Yeah.
But that was a great way to start the walk last year.
Yeah, that was also my favorite moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was genius, whoever thought it up, to have the talking points. The person that I walked with, we talked the whole way, and we probably only made it to maybe 2 or 3 of the talking points. There was like 5 or 6, and we just didn't even get that far, but it was wonderful.
Yeah, and that was the first time we used those question cards, and we've been using them throughout the year. And yeah, just a guide. Hopefully, you don't get all the way through it because you find the subject and just keep going. So we will have those again this year, but we'll also, as I mentioned at the top of the walk, Ray will kind of give prompts like, okay, I have a kid in elementary school, so we're all going to walk together. And so you kind of know in that group, okay, we know we have something in common. So that's really what we're going for.
Yeah, look forward to that. And the Urban Youth Academy, everybody should see that. Like if you're listening today and you haven't been over there to see that, what a great, it's we need to add more like that, but that is a great start to be able to provide a resource in that particular location of the city like that is just wonderful.
Yes, yeah, and this year, a little bit different from last year, we'll be on one of the fields, and we'll also be indoors. So if you came last year and you were hot,
And it was
which
hot.
is everyone, you can get a little reprieve inside. And we'll actually also be on the great lawn in the front as well. So we're kind of expanding our
That's
footprint
exciting.
a little bit. So.
Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. So remind the listeners, Shannon, about the website, the name, the date, all the, hit the critical points again.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So the Walk for Unity, the theme is Next Steps Together, and it is on Saturday, July 9th. So we will be meeting there's a football field at the corner of Troost and Truman. So that's where we'll start. And you can arrive as early as 8:30. We encourage people to arrive at 8:30, and then the walk will start at 9, and then we will walk down Troost and we'll make our way to Urban Youth Academy, and we'll be there until 12:30, and we'll have games. It's very family friendly. We'll have food this year, so we're just excited.
Yeah, and we are too. Our kids are already looking forward to it. They remembered it.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we said we're going again.
Good. Yeah.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about underground. And before we get to that, because that's something that our listeners may know about, I'd love to hear something about what they don't know about. And that's like, why did you want to start dancing? When did you start dancing? How did you end up getting to the point where you would have a leading role in underground?
Yeah. Well, we don't have that much time, but I started dancing when I was 3 years old. My mom put me in dance, wanted to give me something to do, and my parents would just keep asking if I wanted to dance year after year, and I just kept saying yes. So I don't think any of us knew how long it would last, but I'm so grateful. So yeah, and I have had kind of not the normal journey with dance, but the Lord has provided in so many different ways. And so I was dancing with a company in Texas, and we came up here to Kansas City to do a joint show with Storling Dance Theater. And so that was my first introduction to the company, and my first introduction to Mona and Jeremiah. And then it was about 5 or so years later, and they were looking for someone to play one of the roles in Underground. And so I was able to come in as a guest. And so I actually came in as a guest artist for 3 years. And the last year just felt the Lord tugging my heart, and prayed about it and ended up moving here. Actually, originally to dance with the company, had no idea the other things the Lord had in store. But yeah.
Sometimes the Lord is sneaky.
Yeah.
He finds something we'll say yes to, and then he shares the whole rest of the story with us.
Right. Yeah. Which is good. Don't tell me the whole thing from the beginning.
Right. I don't imagine you would see yourself ending up in the role you have with Unite KC, but you're doing a great job. It's been great to see you flourish in that role and to watch Unite KC grow. I've loved watching Ray and Lorna as they lead, and just seeing the character of their lives makes it very believable. So you know that they've been living this for a long time. This is not something that was born out of a moment of need, for sure. But this really comes from a lifetime, of living these practices. So it's great to see it come up when it does. And no organization like that can grow without someone in the role that you're in, and you're doing well with it. So thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your Christian faith. I was watching, I'm a fan of Lexi Lane, and I love what she's doing in Engage South Kansas City. And Lexi had you come out and speak, and I watched the video where she had videoed your talk to them, and where you talked a little bit about your faith. And as you talked about your faith, you also talked about some of the challenges growing up, and how those things have some of them were painful, but some of them also pushed you into taking a stand for the things that you've taken a stand for. So can you share a little bit about that? Just pick the highlights of what you want to talk about. You don't have to go back and retell that story necessarily, but tell the parts of it you'd like to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, well, I would definitely say that one of the biggest lessons that the Lord has taught me is about identity. And another lesson that is really humbling to me is how humble the Lord is, and that He has just shown me that He is willing to be misunderstood, to do what is best for us. And you mentioned earlier saying yes to the Lord. I just would encourage anyone listening to say yes to the Lord. It is a wild ride, and sometimes is like, I don't know if I can hold on, but He's so good, and He knows what He's doing. And so with identity, that has I grew up in a predominantly white area. And so I think there are just things that as I've gotten older, I'm learning that I internalized when I was younger about being different, feeling different, even like, I just want to go swimming, and everyone else around me is just jumping in the pool and jumping out, and I have to get my hair braided, and just things like that. And then things that were definitely more difficult and hurt more, and so as I've gotten older, I'm realizing the impact of that as a kid, and then just this journey the Lord has brought me on to teaching me about my identity, because He cares that much, and so it really started with me learning more about who He is, and then Him teaching me about who I am. And because He defines me, He's the one who gives me my identity, I had to learn more about who He is, and that He is a good Father, and that He's trustworthy. And so so there are several things just with identity, but obviously just the fact that He created me Black, and what a gift that I didn't always realize. And so to get to do what I'm doing now, honestly, stepping into this role at Unite KC was really a moment of a lot of what the Lord had been doing years prior, kind of coming together. And that moment of like, okay, Lord, I get it. Like, I don't get it all, but I see what you've been doing and what you've been working. And so yeah, I am personally super passionate about people knowing their identity, because then when we know that, we'll know what the Lord has created us to do. And so um, for specifically, I just have such a heart for the Black community in the U.S. specifically, because I know that our story is unique. And I also know that the Lord wasn't blind to it, and there are things
Right.
that He can do um, as we walk through that. And but we have to walk through that. And so I think that's individual, but then that's also communal. And so to get to be a part of an organization like Unite KC that recognizes just the sovereignty of God, as a faith-based organization, but then also recognizes what a gift diversity is, and what a gift it is to be able to recognize one another's differences and celebrate them,
Right.
is a gift. So yeah.
Very much agree. And you guys steward that. You steward that really well, and I appreciate that so much. Both your witness and also Ray and the others that are part of it. One of the things that I try to do, Shannon, to push myself to try to understand better, is to read books that are recommended to me by Black authors or people that are writing about the racial issues, and they can introduce me to things I may not have known. And the latest one that I'm reading is called The Very Good Gospel. Have you read or heard about that?
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So by Lisa Shannon Hardy. And so in this particular book, what she does is she tells about, in the first chapter, she talks about how that she grew up as a Black person who was a Christian inside of a mostly white culture. And then she went to work for a Christian organization, and the organization she worked for sent about 20 of them on an immersive journey where they went to the King Center, and then they later went to other cities. So they were on the civil rights. I don't want to say it was a journey or trail, but I mean, they were the cities that were a part of the well-known activities in the Civil Rights Act or time. And so when they were there, it affected her just to be in that place in a way differently than she expected, especially to be at the King Center. And they also went on the Cherokee Trail of Tears. So that about 20 days of just visiting these different cities. And it rocked her world. And she said what she realized is she had what she called a thin gospel, a gospel that Jesus died for our sins, and we can receive him by asking for forgiveness, and we can be saved and have a life that is marked by his presence here, but we can also have an eternity in heaven. And she said, but that very thin gospel didn't have what I needed to be able to understand what had actually taken place in history, and how that so many of these things happened under the majority white leadership, and then were basically no one knows about them. And these atrocities are unknown to many people. And when they're brought up, then they are in many ways considered, to be, just even to bring it up is like to reintroduce the pain and to go back and open up a wound that's not healed yet.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, then how do you actually know? And she said she began to center she said, I needed a different gospel. She said, because it really rocked me. She said for about 14 years, she just was really kind of wondering, what do I do with this? And how do I deal with it? How do I talk about it? How do I bring it up? How do I live with it, et cetera? And what she ended up, not to tell or spoil the book, but maybe it'll make a person want to read it. And by the way, her last name is Harper. I said it wrong. But she said she came to understand a gospel that she calls as a thick gospel now. And it's a gospel centered around the word shalom, where that God really wants thriving for all of his children. And that part of following God is following him in saying, I won't rest until there is equality, until there's, justice, until there's an ability for all of God's people to thrive. Now we know that'll be the rest of our life. But she said, I just have come to reject the idea that to be a Christian or just to follow Christ means it's just this thing I say in a prayer. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes tears, it takes reaching across spaces that sometimes bring up fear. It means facing our prejudice. And she does a great job just helping people to understand the weightiness of where we are at, but also giving us hope, because the whole idea of shalom is that what God created in the garden initially is his plan for mankind forever. And we're on the way there. We're not there, but we're on the way. We will one day have it in its fullness, but even right now, we can work toward having more of it on earth, as long as that's our goal and our quest. So it's called the Very Good Gospel. So it's a good book to read. Lisa
I'll have
Harper.
to look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure that all of us who've been on this journey, even if we're seeing it from different angles, realize the weightiness, even with the tragedies most recently, reminding us once again, how far we have to go.
Yeah. I mean, personally, the Lord has been teaching me a lot about that. Oops, sorry. And just his heart for reconciliation, but also his heart for diversity. And right now we're focused as Unite KC on racial healing, but I think in a larger picture, what has been exciting for me to see is that as we are gathering people, as we are coming together with the intention to get to know one another and to understand each other, getting to see the impact on just how we perceive people in general, not just when we're at a second Saturday or on a Zoom conversation, but to how do we see one another. And so I think just even recognizing, like, the Lord created us to be diverse, not just skin color, but also with our giftings, but also with our weaknesses, and so getting to practice that in different settings is really, this past year, a lot of our goal has been to bring people together, to build and grow relationships. And so to get to see, okay, you look this way, but then you also you think that, or you are good at that, or I see that we've worked together and that's not necessarily your strength, but that's my strength. And to get to appreciate that without practice appreciating that without bringing in a comparison or it's different, so it has to be bad, or and so that for me personally has just been cool to see. I think just get to see more of the Lord's heart, and like he created us to be diverse for a reason. That shows his wisdom and his creativity and the beauty of it. And so to be able to get to practice not being intimidated by differences, but to see them and appreciate them and then still come together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well said. Talk about Second Saturdays for a minute. There might be some listeners who don't know about Second Saturdays.
Sure. So Second Saturdays is an initiative that we started after the walk last year. And so we get together every second Saturday of the month, and we're at different locations in the city. But really the goal is to bring people together to learn about Unite KC, the movement, and how you can get involved. And then also really just to create a space where people can meet others who maybe look different than them, have different skin color, but have the same desire to do something toward racial healing in Kansas City. And maybe some people are like, I'm already doing a lot of things and I just want, to join in with other people. And maybe someone's like, I have no idea what to do. I just want to do something. So I'm here. And so it's been fun to see people keep coming and then have new faces. And so we do have one coming up this month as well. It'll be our last one before the Walk for Unity. So Location is still to be determined. It actually might be a little more interactive and walking this time. We're still working on those details, but you can check our website for more info if you're interested.
It's very easy to find. Just go to Unite KC, and is it com or org? I can't remember.
It's unitekc.org.
Org, yeah. I've been there so many times, my computer fills it in. So
yes, that is helpful, right?
But it's easy to find out what's on the agenda for the second Saturday. Well, Shannon, I've been a guest on podcasts before, and whenever someone asks me to be on a podcast, these kind of thoughts go through my mind. Like, there's definitely things I want to talk about, and then there's things I know that they're probably going to ask me about, and I want to be ready for those. Yeah. And you've done a good job being ready for the things that I wanted you to talk about. Is there anything that was kind of on your mind where, at least this happens to me? Sometimes I'll say, "Oh, I hope they would ask me about this or about that." Is there anything that given the platform you have here, if you just would like to say something that's important to you or you think people would benefit from hearing, what would that be?
Yeah. I think I would say two things, if I may.
Sure.
So before we started recording, you were telling me more about Bless KC, the podcast, and kind of the listeners. And so I just would say that for those of you listening, Unite KC is a faith-based organization, but it is not, you don't have to be a Christian to be involved. And so it's really a great way for Christians to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the city. But it's also a great way for you to invite friends to, like, hey, let's just get together and do something that will impact the city in a positive way, and that will also be beneficial to us as participants. So just want to encourage you with that really we realize it's going to take everyone to be a part of healing the racial divide. And so everyone is welcome. And so I would say that. And I think the other thing is just we all have a role to play. And so a lot of times when we talk about, how do we heal the racial divide? How do we cross these lines? I'm just one person, and it can get overwhelming really quickly. And so I just would encourage people to, we say all the time, do one good thing. And so maybe for where you are, maybe that one good thing is just to see someone that you might be tempted to make an assumption about, and to recognize the differences, but then also to look through a lens of appreciating those differences and appreciating, and that person has that style that I don't have, or that person, has that hair color or eye color, to not ignore them, but to look, to appreciate them, as opposed to looking to letting them separate. And so I think that when we do that, we see that really affects every area of our lives. And I think it's a good starting point to then be able to care about, this school has these resources and that school doesn't. And so how do I fix that? Or in this sphere of my life, I have access to this and I want to provide that for other people. So right. I would just encourage people to start there. Start where you are.
Yeah, well said. So good. One of the things that I remind myself of often, Shannon, is that, we're all children of God. We have, the same color of blood that runs through our veins, and we're made very similar. Our body makeup is the same. It's our skin color that's different, or our life experiences that are different. Could be the way we think is different. But if we lead with love, like I'm gonna love because you're my sister. I'm gonna love because someone's my brother, and that's, Jesus said that we should treat others like the way we want to be treated. So let's lead with love, and then if that's our starting point. Whenever we hit the differences, I think we already have a buffer to be able to say, okay, I can handle that difference because this person sees things differently, or their life experience is different, or their values are different. And the love then gives us the ability to lean in rather than stepping back. And so one of the things I've learned a lot is I have to just understand that we all do have fears. And like sometimes if I'm not careful, my fear will keep me from, maybe making the best choice. That's what's happening with the other person that I'm talking to in many cases. They have fears too. And if I can help alleviate the fears we as Christians, we talk about living in the truth, and the truth sets us free. So how can we get to the truth? How can we get beyond fears? If we can do that, like some amazing things can happen. And that's my hope and prayer.
Yeah, definitely. And if we can recognize that we are all created in the image of God, then we can recognize that the things that make us different, they're still created in the image of God,
They are.
And so,
They are.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, Shannon, thank you so much. It's been great to have you as our guest today.
Well, thank you, Gary. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So as we wrap up today, for those of you who are listening, just another quick reminder that if you want to subscribe to the Blessed podcast, you can do so on iTunes or Google Play if you're listening on another device. You can also go to the website lovekc.net, and under resources you'll find all the podcasts. One of the ways to interact, if you want to go listen to this podcast and you want to actually watch it, then go to Love KC's Facebook page, Living on Mission. And there you can interact and you can talk to others about what you're seeing and maybe find other good content you didn't know about. These are also all posted on YouTube. So if you go to Love KC Today's YouTube page, you can subscribe. Every time one comes out, you'll get a notice and you'll be able to watch it right from YouTube. So lots of different ways to connect. But if we've not met personally, let's do so at the Walk for Unity. And Shannon, thank you so much for sharing about that.
Yes, thank you again. Hope to see you there.
Yeah. Well, we like to close the same way we start, by saying, let's join Jesus where he's already at work. All right, where we live, learn, work, and play. God bless you.
Thank you for listening from the folks at Love KC. We hope you enjoyed our program. See you next time.